Oregon's 2025 housing market is not collapsing in the dramatic fashion some expected. It is seizing up, slowly and relentlessly. What we are witnessing is not a crash in the traditional sense, but a financial freeze spreading deeper, faster, and with far more brutality than most analysts predicted. The statewide median home price continues to hover around $516,600, a figure that on the surface seems stable. Yet behind that number lies a market that has become paralyzed. Buyers have vanished from the landscape, while inventory has swelled by more than 12% in just the last year, creating a chilling imbalance. The affordability gap has now widened into something more like an unbridgeable canyon. Mortgage rates lingering above 7% have turned the dream of homeownership into a crushing financial burden reserved only for the highest earners. Foreclosures are ticking upward. Properties that once flew off the market in a matter of days are now languishing, with the median time to sell stretching to 34 days and often requiring steep, painful price cuts. Welcome to the beginning of Oregon's ghost towns in the making. Communities that only a few years ago were booming, but are now showing the early signs of becoming the nation's next big real estate regret. Today, we reveal the 10 Oregon cities that are at the very heart of this devastating market paralysis, and the data is already telling a story far more chilling than most residents are prepared to face. These cities are becoming case studies of fragility in a state that once prided itself on stability. Number 10. Astoria. At the mouth of the Columbia River sits Astoria, a historic port city long celebrated for its coastal charm and slower pace of life. For years it was considered a hidden gem, drawing new residents eager for ocean views, heritage architecture, and the dream of a more tranquil lifestyle. That unique character fueled a mini-boom, sending home prices soaring. But in 2025, that dream has soured, turning into something closer to a financial nightmare. According to Redfin, the median home price in Astoria now sits at $464,950, representing a staggering 15.5% drop compared to just a year ago. This is not the gentle correction some predicted. It is a structural collapse, undermining the very foundation of the city's market. Even more alarming is the dramatic slowdown in activity. Data shows home sales in Astoria fell by 17.6% year over year as of July 2025, a clear indicator that demand has not just weakened, but is actively evaporating. Properties that once went pending within weeks now linger, with the median days to pending climbing to 51 from only 36 a year ago. The affordability crisis here is a major driver of this shift, with the median household income hovering around $70,043. A median home price near $500,000, coupled with mortgage rates above 7%, creates monthly payments that are simply crushing for most families. The financial math does not work, and buyers know it. As the broader Oregon market retreats, Astoria is losing its once protective shield of coastal desirability. The charm and scenery remain, but the economic foundation is cracking, leaving the city more vulnerable than ever to the same powerful forces dragging down the rest of the state. Astoria now finds itself suspended between its nostalgic promise of charm and a bleak new reality of financial strain. It is becoming the perfect example of a ghost town in the making, where dreams collide with unrelenting economic pressure, and where the story of Oregon's housing freeze begins to take its most visible form. Number 9. Corvallis. Nestled in the heart of the Willamette Valley, Corvallis has long been considered one of Oregon's most stable and desirable housing markets. As the home of Oregon State University, it carries a reputation for innovation, research, and steady, high-paying jobs tied to both academia and a budding tech sector. For decades, this city projected an image of resilience, a safe bet for families seeking quality schools and a strong community atmosphere. Its family-friendly vibe and relatively steady job market made it seem nearly immune to downturns that plagued other areas of the state. But in 2025, even Corvallis's polished facade is starting to crack under the relentless weight of the housing freeze. On the surface, the numbers appeared deceptively calm. According to Redfin, the median sale price has edged up a modest 2.5% year over year, resting around $535,000. To the casual observer, that might look like a sign of stability. Yet a deeper examination of the data reveals a much darker picture. The number of homes sold has plummeted by more than 18% in the past year, a collapse in demand that cannot be ignored. Listings that once generated eager bidding wars are now sitting idle, with homes lingering on the market for an average of 42 days, compared to just 30 days the year before. This elongation is not a blip, it is a signal of a profound slowdown. More troubling still, Zillow data indicates that the median list price is trending down 1.5% year over year. That shift means sellers are being forced to cut their expectations dramatically just to attract attention. In a market once seen as a seller's paradise, desperation has now entered the equation. The affordability crisis, which has haunted other Oregon cities, is now becoming Corvallis's Achilles heel. The city's median household income sits at roughly $70,000. Yet monthly mortgage payments for a typical home here can now exceed $4,200 with current 7% interest rates. That kind of debt-to-income ratio is not just tight. It is unsustainable for most families. Buyers run the numbers and quickly realize the math does not work, leaving them sidelined or forced to look elsewhere. Meanwhile, homeowners who refinanced during the ultra-low interest rate frenzy of 2021 are now locked in. They refuse to sell and lose their advantageous rates, further contributing to what analysts are calling housing paralysis. The market, once lively and competitive, now feels suffocated, unable to breathe. Investors who flocked to Corvallis during its boom years are facing their own reckoning. Properties that once promised high returns are now stagnating, sitting vacant, and bleeding expenses. This growing sense of paralysis is not just financial, it is palpable throughout the community. Neighborhoods that once sparkled with activity and optimism now feel quieter, with fewer moving vans, fewer open houses, and a lingering sense of hesitation. In 2025, Corvallis is learning a painful truth. No market, no matter how well educated, well employed, or exclusive, is safe from the relentless grip of Oregon's housing freeze. The facade of stability has cracked, revealing a city grappling with the same suffocating forces reshaping the rest of the state. Number 8. Salem. Oregon's state capital has long carried a reputation as a refuge for families and remote workers priced out of Portland. It offered the promise of affordability, government job stability, and a quieter lifestyle compared to the state's larger metro hubs. For years, Salem symbolized a more accessible slice of the Oregon dream, attracting steady waves of new residents who believed they had found a safe haven. But in 2025, that promise is unraveling. The dream of Salem as a secure housing market is turning into something far more troubling, a slow-motion nightmare of stalled sales, creeping foreclosures, and a looming correction. According to Zillow, the average home value in Salem now sits at $443,693. On paper, that number is up a meager 0.1% year over year, but the apparent stability hides a far more concerning trend. New listings are far outpacing actual sales. Analysts tracking the local market note that while inventory has grown, the appetite to buy has shriveled. The median days on market has jumped to 40 from just 32 a year ago, and nearly 35% of all listings have seen price reductions. That level of discounting is not a normal seasonal shift. It is a sign of distress. Sellers are being forced to chase buyers down the price ladder, cutting deeper and deeper as offers fail to materialize. The city's affordability crisis is sharpening the pain. With the median household income hovering near $65,000, the cost of financing a median-priced home with today's 7% mortgage rates translates into a monthly payment approaching $3,500. That mismatch between earnings and debt obligations is pushing many prospective buyers to the sidelines entirely. It is a textbook case of demand collapsing under the weight of financial strain. The impact is now showing up in darker corners of the market. Foreclosure filings in Marion County are up 15% year over year, signaling that financial pressure is not just hypothetical, it is forcing households into crisis. The irony is brutal. Salem's economy, once thought to be protected by a base of government and healthcare jobs, is proving inadequate in the face of modern housing costs. Those sectors provide stability, but not enough income growth to keep pace with a market this inflated. Even more troubling is the demographic imbalance taking root. A recent report from the Portland State University Population Research Center found that much of Salem's modest population growth comes from working-age migrants. Yet, for this group, homeownership is increasingly out of reach. They arrive in the city with the hope of buying, only to confront financial walls that push them into rentals or out of the market entirely. The result is a market caught in gridlock. On one side stand the buyers, who lack the financial firepower to enter the market. On the other stand sellers, many of whom are unwilling or unable to slash their prices enough to meet the new reality. This tug-of-war is leaving homes unsold and the market paralyzed. Salem now finds itself suspended between the promise of its past and the bleak reality of its present. It is becoming yet another Oregon city serving as a case study in what happens when affordability collapses and structural weaknesses finally surface. For families who once viewed Salem as a sanctuary, the city is starting to feel like a trap. Number 7. Gresham. Once a sprawling and affordable suburb of Portland, Gresham was long regarded as a magnet for families and first-time buyers who wanted the perks of metro living without the high Portland price tag. For decades, it carried the image of opportunity, a place where young families could put down roots, where affordability and quality of life coexisted in a rare and appealing balance. But in 2025, that story is rapidly unraveling. The dream that drew people to Gresham is being replaced by a very different reality: slowing sales, mounting financial strain, and a housing market that no longer delivers on its promise. According to Redfin, the median sale price in Gresham is now $485,000, representing a 2.1% decline compared to a year ago. While the drop might seem modest, it signals something much larger. In housing, momentum matters, and Gresham's momentum has clearly shifted into reverse. The slowdown in sales is particularly alarming. A recent analysis found that home sales in Gresham were down 18% year over year in July 2025. This is not a seasonal dip, it's a collapse in buyer demand. Homes that once sold in a matter of weeks are now sitting, unsold and unwanted. The median days to pending has climbed from 38 to 45 days in just 1 year, and with each week that passes, more sellers are being forced to slash their prices to lure in hesitant buyers. The affordability crisis is central to this unraveling. The median household income in Multnomah County sits at roughly $87,000, which in theory sounds healthy. But when paired with $500,000 homes and mortgage rates above 7%, even that income base is not enough. Typical monthly payments climb into territory that is unsustainable for average families. The very buyers who once sustained Gresham's boom are now sidelined, pushed into rentals, or priced out entirely. This pressure is compounded by broader market dynamics. The overall Oregon housing market is retreating, and Gresham is losing what little protective shield it once had, its image of affordability. As Portland's market cooled, Gresham was once viewed as the fallback option, the city where deals could still be found. But that relative edge has eroded. Today, Gresham is no longer cheap enough to attract desperate buyers, nor strong enough to command the loyalty of locals. It is caught in the middle, and in housing markets, the middle is a dangerous place to be. Signs of strain are emerging across the community. Open houses that once buzzed with activity now stand half empty. Realtors report rising levels of cancellations and withdrawn listings. Population growth, once a steady source of demand, is slowing, and with fewer new residents entering the market, the imbalance of supply and demand is only worsening. Gresham, like so many of Oregon's cities, is caught between the bright promise of its past and the bleak realities of its present. Its suburban appeal remains on the surface: good schools, relative proximity to Portland, and access to nature. But the underlying economics no longer add up. Buyers know it, sellers feel it, and the result is a city increasingly vulnerable to the same suffocating forces freezing the rest of the state. What was once marketed as a dream suburb is now drifting toward the ranks of Oregon's ghost towns in the making, a place where affordability slipped away just as quickly as demand. Number 6. Eugene. Known as a vibrant college town and an eco-conscious community, Eugene has long been considered one of Oregon's most desirable markets. With the University of Oregon at its heart, the city carried a reputation for cultural energy, progressive values, and a steady base of rental demand. For many years it was seen as a safe bet, a place where investors, families, and students coexisted in a housing market that seemed stable, if not always affordable. But in 2025, even Eugene's polished reputation is beginning to falter. The numbers tell the story. According to Zillow, the average home value in Eugene now stands at $479,240, a modest 2% increase over the past year. At first glance, that growth might seem reassuring. But beneath that thin layer of stability lies a far more troubling reality. The number of homes sold has plummeted by more than 10% in the past year. That contraction is striking in a city once fueled by constant turnover and eager buyers. Listings that once moved in under a month now sit stagnant, with the average time on the market ballooning to 42 days, up from just 29 days a year ago. Even more alarming, over 40% of all homes listed in Eugene have endured at least one price reduction. That figure reveals sellers struggling to meet buyers where they are, slashing expectations again and again, only to face continued resistance. The affordability crisis is Eugene's Achilles heel. The city's median household income sits around $58,000, significantly lower than in many other Oregon markets. Yet mortgage payments on a typical home, when combined with today's 7% interest rates, now exceed $3,800 per month. For most families, those payments are crushing, well beyond what household budgets can sustain. The financial mismatch is stark, and it is sidelining would-be buyers at a pace that accelerates the freeze. Investors, too, are being forced to confront painful truths. Many who bought properties during the frenzied low-rate years entered the market expecting long-term appreciation and steady rental income. Instead, they now find themselves with homes that sit vacant or units that command rents insufficient to cover mounting mortgage costs. What was once a goldmine is fast becoming a liability. The city's own data paints an equally grim picture. According to local housing reports, Eugene would need to produce roughly 1,600 new units each year just to meet its stated housing goals. Yet that target is not just ambitious, it is completely out of reach under current conditions. The city has not come close to achieving those numbers, and its housing implementation pipeline remains both underfunded and bogged down in early planning stages. While the University of Oregon provides a consistent cushion for the rental market, the broader dream of home ownership in Eugene is slipping further out of reach. The palpable sense of paralysis can be felt across neighborhoods. Empty, for sale, signs lingering on lawns, families hesitating to buy, investors quietly exiting, and a community that feels as though its energy has been sapped. In 2025, Eugene is learning a painful lesson. No market, no matter how culturally rich or environmentally conscious, is immune to the relentless weight of Oregon's housing freeze. The city retains its charm on the surface, but the undercurrent of financial strain is dragging it into the same frozen reality gripping the rest of the state. Number 5. Bend. Tucked into Central Oregon, Bend has long been the poster child for upscale mountain living. With its pristine scenery, highly rated schools, and booming tourism industry, the city became a magnet for professionals, retirees, and high-income families seeking a master-planned community in the high desert. For years, it epitomized luxury combined with outdoor adventure, a place where hiking trails, breweries, and ski slopes fueled both lifestyle and real estate demand. That reputation helped drive one of the most dramatic housing booms in the state. At the peak of its frenzy, Bend's median home price soared well beyond $725,000, cementing its image as an exclusive market. But in 2025, even Bend's glossy exterior is beginning to crack under the same relentless pressures gripping the rest of Oregon. According to Realtor.com, the median listing price in Bend now stands at $919,000, a figure that reflects not strength, but decline, trending down 4.3% year over year. Sales have also stalled. The number of homes sold has dropped by more than 15% over the past 12 months. Properties that once disappeared within days are now lingering, with the average time on market stretching to 48 days compared to 38 just a year ago. More concerning still, nearly half, 48.2%, of all listings in Bend have undergone price reductions. That number reveals sellers losing leverage at an astonishing pace. The message is clear. Bend's once invincible seller's market is no longer. Buyers, empowered by weakening demand, are forcing the market to bend to their terms. The affordability crisis here is severe. With a median household income of roughly $80,000, families face the daunting reality of mortgage payments that now exceed $6,500 per month at current 7% interest rates. That debt-to-income ratio is unsustainable for all but the wealthiest residents. Many locals, priced out of their own community, are left to watch as the dream of homeownership drifts further away. Adding to the paralysis is a wave of immobility among existing homeowners. Many refinanced during the historic low-interest rate era of 2021, locking in payments that are now irreplaceable. They refuse to sell, knowing they cannot afford to buy back into the market at today's rates. This gridlock leaves the market suffocated, with few new listings, declining sales, and a sense of stasis. Investors who once flooded Bend with capital are also facing a grim reckoning. Vacation homes that were expected to generate consistent rental income now sit empty as tourism slows and demand cools. Properties purchased at peak prices are losing value, forcing some owners to consider steep discounts or prolonged vacancies. On the surface, Bend still sparkles. Its streets remain lined with cafes, boutique shops, and upscale developments. The mountains remain breathtaking. But beneath that beauty lies a market suffocating under the weight of financial strain. In 2025, Bend is discovering that no community, no matter how exclusive or picturesque, is safe from the forces of Oregon's housing freeze. The shift is more than just numbers. It's cultural. A city once defined by optimism and expansion is now marked by hesitation, unease, and silence in neighborhoods that once thrived with activity. The dream that Bend sold for years is now slipping away, replaced by the chilling stillness of a market in retreat. Number 4, Hillsboro. For decades, Hillsboro has been the beating heart of Oregon's Silicon Forest, home to major employers like Intel and a constellation of tech firms that powered both local jobs and housing demand. Its economic foundation was once considered unshakable, an engine of growth that made the city one of the safest bets in the state's real estate market. Families, professionals, and investors flocked here, confident that the city's tech-fueled stability would translate into endlessly rising home values. But in 2025, Hillsboro is facing a troubling transformation. The very forces that built its housing boom are now working in reverse, undermining confidence and eroding the stability that once defined the city. According to Redfin, the median home price has slipped to $517,000, representing a 5.5% decline over the past year. That drop may seem moderate, but in a market once thought immune to downturns, it is a flashing red warning sign. The affordability equation is growing increasingly bleak. With mortgage rates hovering above 7%, the monthly payment on a median-priced Hillsboro home now exceeds $4,400. Compare that with the median household income in Washington County, roughly $98,000, and the gap becomes impossible to ignore. For many families, that ratio simply doesn't work. The pool of qualified buyers is shrinking rapidly, leaving sellers with fewer options and mounting frustration. Inventory tells another sobering story. Active listings have surged by 20% year over year, a ballooning supply that signals a clear imbalance between what sellers want and what buyers can afford. Homes that once disappeared in bidding wars are now sitting, with the average time on the market stretching to 50 days, up from just 35 only 2 years ago. Nearly 38% of those homes have already endured price cuts, reflecting desperation among sellers who are watching their leverage vanish. Even more concerning is the spike in foreclosure activity. Hillsboro has seen a 25% increase in foreclosures, especially among households that purchased with minimal equity during the frenzied peak years of 2021 and 2022. These are families who stretched to enter the market, betting on endless appreciation, and are now facing missed payments and forced sales. What was once a golden ticket has become a financial trap. The irony is painful. The tech jobs that once shielded Hillsboro from downturns remain in place, but the sector itself is slowing. A report from the Hillsboro News-Times notes that consumer spending is tightening, layoffs are trickling through the industry, and statewide economic headwinds are compounding the slowdown. Buyers sense the fragility and are choosing caution over risk, leaving homes to sit untouched. Hillsboro illustrates a larger truth about Oregon's housing crisis. No matter how strong the job base, no market can resist the relentless arithmetic of high interest rates, inflated prices, and buyer fatigue. The city that once represented boundless growth now faces stagnation, where optimism has been replaced with hesitation and open houses linger without offers. The lesson is stark. Hillsborough's housing boom was built on tech-fueled confidence and constant migration. In 2025, that confidence has cracked, and the migration has slowed. What remains is a city discovering, like so many others in Oregon, that the housing freeze respects no boundaries. Number 3. Beaverton. For years, Beaverton stood as the crown jewel of suburban living in the Portland metro area. With its meticulously planned neighborhoods, highly rated schools, abundant parks, and proximity to global employers like Nike, it seemed immune to the instability that plagued other cities. Families with high incomes sought its tree-lined streets, while investors viewed it as a safe, long-term bet on growth. Beaverton represented the dream of suburban perfection, a place where stability, prosperity, and community came together seamlessly. But in 2025, that dream is beginning to fade. According to Redfin, the median sale price in Beaverton has technically risen a modest 1.1% year over year, reaching $565,000. On the surface, this might suggest resilience. Yet once again, the surface hides a harsher reality. Beneath the veneer of stability lies a troubling shift in market fundamentals. The number of homes sold has dropped sharply, down more than 14% in the past year. That contraction is significant, especially in a city that once saw homes snapped up almost instantly. Now, properties linger, with the average time on the market climbing to 58 days compared to just 44 a year earlier. Every additional week a home sits unsold is another sign that buyer urgency has vanished. Zillow data adds another chilling layer. The median list price is trending down 2.8% year over year. This tells us that sellers, no matter how optimistic, are being forced to slash their asking prices in order to compete. The once unshakable confidence of homeowners is eroding, and the market's direction is unmistakable. Affordability, as elsewhere, is the Achilles heel. Beaverton's median household income is around $95,000, but mortgage payments on a median-priced home now exceed $4,500 per month at 7% interest rates. That debt-to-income ratio is brutal. Families who might otherwise want to buy are realizing that ownership now means financial suffocation. Many are walking away, choosing to rent or relocate rather than take on crushing obligations. Compounding the paralysis is the immobility of those who bought or refinanced during the low-rate frenzy of 2021. Locked into interest rates that are half of today's, many homeowners are simply refusing to move. The result is a market where new listings stagnate, transactions slow, and liquidity evaporates. This is not just a slump, it is a suffocation. Investors are also feeling the squeeze. Many who purchased rental properties in Beaverton expected stable demand and endless appreciation. Now, they face vacancies, softening rental yields, and declining home values. The mismatch between what they paid and what the market is willing to offer is growing, leaving them with difficult choices. On the surface, Beaverton still shines. Its neighborhoods remain immaculate, its parks full, and its proximity to major employers intact. But behind the outward stability is a community grappling with deep financial tension. In 2025, Beaverton is discovering that no neighborhood, no matter how planned, polished, or prestigious, is safe from Oregon's housing freeze. The dream of suburban perfection has begun to dissolve. What lingers is a stillness in the market, a quiet unease that contrasts sharply with the city's outward charm. For a generation of buyers who once saw Beaverton as the ultimate goal, the reality of today's market feels like betrayal. Number 2. Lake Oswego. For decades, the city's very name has been synonymous with wealth and exclusivity. With its breathtaking lakefront estates, manicured neighborhoods, and reputation as a fortress of affluence, Lake Oswego long appeared untouchable. Here, luxury wasn't just a lifestyle, it was the foundation of the housing market. For many, this enclave represented the pinnacle of Oregon living, a community where rising values seemed guaranteed and where economic turbulence elsewhere barely registered. But in 2025, even Lake Oswego is showing unmistakable signs of strain. According to Redfin, the median home price has dropped to $850,000, a steep 3.5% decline compared to the previous year. For a market built on the expectation of perpetual appreciation, That fall is more than symbolic. It is destabilizing. Meanwhile, homes are sitting unsold for an average of 78 days, a dramatic increase that signals a collapse in buyer urgency. Properties that once inspired bidding wars are now enduring months of silence. Inventory has also ballooned. The number of available homes is up more than 25% year over year, flooding the market with high-end listings at precisely the moment demand has faltered. The glut of luxury homes is changing the psychology of buyers and sellers alike. A recent local report found that more than 50% of listings have endured price cuts this quarter. That level of discounting is unprecedented in a city that once prided itself on unshakable value. The Achilles heel of Lake Oswego's market is its dependence on a small pool of ultra-wealthy buyers. When mortgage rates were low, even luxury buyers stretched upward, confident that appreciation would justify their risk. But at today's rates, the economics no longer align. With median list prices north of $1.1 million, monthly payments have reached staggering levels, even for high-net-worth households. A telling example surfaced recently. A waterfront estate initially listed at $3. SIF $5 million ultimately sold for $2.8 million after languishing for 150 days. A 20% discount at this price level is not just a sale, it is a seismic shift in buyer power. The cultural impact of these changes cannot be understated. Lake Oswego was built on the illusion of invulnerability, a belief that its exclusivity would shield it from downturns. But the shift from an unquestioned seller's market to one where buyers negotiate aggressively is sending shockwaves through the community. For longtime residents, this is uncharted territory. The city still boasts extraordinary natural beauty, its shimmering lake, its leafy streets, its luxury boutiques. Yet beauty alone cannot sustain a housing market. In 2025, the arithmetic has turned against Lake Oswego. Unless prices undergo a substantial correction, this enclave risks hollowing out with too many listings chasing too few qualified buyers. What once felt like a fortress of wealth now feels fragile, its foundation shaken by forces no city in Oregon can escape. Lake Oswego remains a place of privilege, but privilege is proving insufficient protection against the relentless freeze gripping the state. On the surface, it sparkles. Beneath, it teeters on the edge of becoming an oceanfront ghost town, waiting for a reset that may come sooner than its residents are prepared to accept. Number 1. Portland. For years, Portland was the crown jewel of Oregon's housing market, a city that blended quirky culture, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong economic growth. With its coffee shops, bike lanes, and reputation for creativity, it drew in waves of new residents who pushed home prices ever higher. At its peak, Portland symbolized not just the Oregon dream, but an international ideal of urban living. But in 2025, the foundation of Portland's market is cracking. On the surface, the city still looks strong. The median home price hovers around $545,000, a figure that suggests stability to the untrained eye. Yet behind this number lies a slow but suffocating decline in affordability and demand. The danger here isn't in a dramatic collapse, but in a grinding erosion that leaves buyers exhausted and sellers cornered. According to Redfin, the median days on market in Portland has climbed to 22, up 4 full days from last year. That might sound modest, but in a city once defined by speed and competition, it is a signal that urgency has evaporated. Even more revealing, nearly 39% of all homes in Multnomah County have endured at least one price drop. That's not seasonal fluctuation. That's leverage shifting decisively into buyers' hands. The affordability crisis has now reached emergency levels. The median household income across the Portland-Vancouver-Hillsborough metro sits at roughly $124,000. Yet a monthly payment on a median-priced home, given today's interest rates, now exceeds $4,500. That burden makes homeownership unattainable for all but the highest earners. For middle-class families, the very backbone of the market, the dream of buying in Portland has slipped out of reach. This imbalance is already triggering an exodus. The Portland Metro Chamber reports that Multnomah County lost a net 4,820 residents in the past year, one of the largest population declines in decades. Families are leaving, chasing affordability in other states, or retreating into permanent renting. This population bleed is a critical warning sign. When people stop moving into a city and start moving out, the housing market loses its lifeblood. The damage isn't confined to residential real estate. Portland's job market is weakening in tandem. High-paying sectors like technology and financial services have shed jobs, eroding the economic base that once supported robust housing demand. Commercial real estate is in even deeper trouble. Office vacancy rates have surged to 23.1% in the second quarter of 2025, according to local reports. A national survey confirmed the trend, placing Portland's office vacancy rate at 21.1% as of July. Empty towers downtown stand as silent monuments to a city struggling under its own weight. This is the paradox of Portland in 2025. On the surface, the city still glitters. Its restaurants, neighborhoods, and cultural life remain. But beneath that facade lies a market increasingly defined by hesitation, retreat, and structural weakness. Portland is discovering that a housing market doesn't need to crash in spectacular fashion to inflict pain. A slow suffocation can be just as devastating. For a city that once prided itself on innovation and resilience, the current freeze is a sobering reminder that no market is immune. Portland's housing story is no longer one of endless growth, but of stalled demand, lost residents, and financial burdens that have become unbearable for the majority. The roses still bloom, but the soil beneath them is growing weak. Oregon's housing market in 2025 is not experiencing the spectacular collapse that some predicted. Instead, what we are witnessing is something quieter yet far more insidious: a deep freeze. Across the state, from historic coastal towns like Astoria to high-tech centers like Hillsborough, from luxury enclaves such as Lake Oswego to Portland itself, the story is the same. Homes are not selling fast. Prices are not free-falling, but neither are they holding steady. And affordability, the cornerstone of home ownership, has reached crisis levels. This is not a California-style crash where prices plummet overnight. The shortage of supply, ironically, prevents that kind of collapse. There are still too few homes overall, a force that keeps prices from falling dramatically. But what Oregon faces is arguably just as painful: a suffocating paralysis. Sellers can't move, buyers can't buy, and the dream of homeownership is slipping further out of reach for ordinary families. The implications ripple far beyond real estate. As families retreat from the market, communities lose vitality. As affordability declines, migration patterns shift, hollowing out cities that once thrived on growth. As jobs stagnate and commercial spaces empty, the economic strain deepens. The very forces that built Oregon's housing boom, steady migration, lifestyle appeal, and job growth, are now working in reverse, dragging the market into a prolonged freeze. For thousands of recent buyers, the danger is negative equity, being trapped in homes worth less than the debt they carry. For others, it is the crushing weight of monthly payments that consume far too much of their income. And for younger generations, it is the painful realization that the American dream of homeownership may no longer be attainable in the state they call home. Oregon still retains its natural beauty, its cultural vibrancy, and its unique quality of life. But beauty cannot pay mortgages, and charm cannot bridge affordability gaps. Unless there is a significant reset, through falling rates, rising incomes, or a major correction in prices, the freeze will continue. And the longer it lasts, the more it will shape the future of families, neighborhoods, and entire cities. This is the sobering reality of Oregon's housing market in 2025. Not a dramatic collapse, but a slow, relentless suffocation of the housing dream. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video.